I'm Jessica McMillan. I'm the Director of Systems at WVU Libraries, and I'm presenting today with Patrick Burden, who is our digital archivist. We did a presentation at Samvera Virtual Connect, but it wasn't recorded, so Heather asked us if we would record it so that it can be included in the videos from Samvera Virtual Connect. We are going to talk about our new haiku repository. It showcases the collections from the West Virginia and Regional History Center at WVU Libraries. And you can see here a sampling of a variety of some of the collections we have. The Rush Du Holt political cartoons, the identification, the International Association for Identification, which was a collection given to us because of our forensics program and has things like these fingerprints from starting in like 1915. And then in the middle, a picture from the J. Rockefeller collection, who was the senator for West Virginia for a very long time. So I'm going to go over an overview of kind of some of the history at WVU and some of the project planning and development work that we did. Patrick's going to talk about the migration prep, and then we're going to do a little bit of a show and tell. So our previous systems, we first started with our digital collections in the, I think, late 2000, like 2010, something like that. We started with DLXS, which was a product from University of Michigan. And when it had housed both our photograph collection as well as our electronic theses and dissertations. When that product was kind of discontinued, we developed something locally that we called MFCS, Metadata Form Creation System, which was designed to house metadata and be kind of repository agnostic in terms of going with, a vendor or something like that. But it's only an internal system. And so we also started using Hydra heads to present all of our various collections. And you can see on this slide, there's a screenshot of the metadata form creation system forms where you could create different metadata forms for different projects. It also had some preservation things built in, but when we were looking at it a couple years ago, we realized that it didn't handle batch uploading at all really, or anything hierarchical. And also it would take a lot of development work to create a system from scratch, which we didn't have really the resources to do. So we did initially think that we could just redesign what we currently have, update the code, in part because we didn't have a digital archivist. Once we hired a digital archivist, it became very clear that we didn't have MFCS was not going to be a viable solution. With the digital archivist who was previously in Patrick's position, we did some experimentation with Hyrax and Haiku, including exploring Haiku through the Palsy-Palmy Haiku for Consortia grant. And at that time, we didn't have the blessing from administration to continue working in Hyrax. And at that point, the Haiku would not adequately meet our needs. And so I spent some time advocating that we needed to have this be a enterprise level decision, and not just the archives and the systems kind of working ad hoc to put something together. And so the administration decided to hire a consultant to kind of look at our whole digital asset management and preservation landscape. And so Rosalind Metz did interviews with different departments and kind of helped outline what we needed to do, especially in terms of project planning, to figure out which system would best meet our needs. And so that's when we initiated the DAMP project. And so there were several of us that worked through evaluating systems, determining requirements, and that ultimately led to the selection of Haiku, which the development work that had happened since we first looked at it was quite extensive, and we realized that it would be more sustainable for us to adopt Haiku rather than trying to build something in Hyrax. We also looked at some other systems, but we felt like Haiku was a very good match for in terms of cost and development work required based on the resources that we had. But we did decide that it would be much more efficient to hire Notch 8 to do the initial development work to launch Haiku, and then with the idea that then our local development team would be able to work on it moving forward. So we did the first development cycle in May of 2025. There was testing in kind of late 2025 to help determine, like, to work out some workflows, and also to determine what needed to happen in the second development cycle with Notch 8, which we did, and that took place in November 2025 to January 2026. We worked with Notch 8 to get the production version of Haiku up and running in April. I've been working on migrating on an ongoing basis, and we are tentatively planning a soft launch in June 2026 with a more full, campus-wide announcement in fall of 2026. And now I will turn it over to Patrick.
Sure thing. So once again, my name is Patrick Burden. I'm the Digital Collections Archivist over at WVU. And I'm going to talk to you about the migration process there. So one of the big things that we tackled first was a little bit of a data cleanup in regard for our old legacy systems. Metadata that was in there did not meet our current standards. So this was one of those rare opportunities that we have the time to go back and fix past mistakes. I highly recommend, if you have the capability of that, please do so. It's going to save you so much time in the future. The biggest output of this is going to be to make sure that the data presented is to make it easier for people to search for not only the files, but also the collections within them themselves. And also, I'll address a couple mediation things we did on the physical files themselves outside of the metadata as well. So one of the big things that we had to do was convert our particular file structure. So as a holdover from our legacy systems, we had every page as an individual object within the system itself. And if you are a researcher and you wanted to view a 5-page document, you would have to click on 5 different items there. So we wanted to find an easier way of doing that. So we wrote up this Python script here. I have it demonstrated here. It basically takes all of the raw TIFF files that we have there and converts it to a PDF file. For this example, I'm just showing single page examples, but if there are multiple pages, we will put those in subfolders, and the script will be able to recognize the order of those things, arrange it in that particular order, and then output one file that has multiple pages to it. Basically, we are not only doing that with the PDFs, but we are also further doing the JPEGs. A lot of the items that we have are document based, so majority of the items that we are using now are PDFs with a couple JPEGs. Further on down the line, when we go to our other collections, that's going to change there. But for now, this is a good enough start for where we need to go. So another thing we want to do was update the metadata, like I said, and there's a couple bits of metadata that's there. So one of the big ones is doing conversion of date to the EDTF format. It makes it a lot easier for not only search engines to locate your records via the dates field, but also gives Haiku the opportunity to have better indexing for faceted searches. So like many of you, I'm assuming you're using some sort of DAX format, and because of that, it's not in a very well-formed manner. So what I show here is a option in Excel where I take a date, I separate it out using the text to column, and I make it a generic there. I then use an equation, the text equation there. If you just add an equal sign, it would actually work for you. To have the leading zeros, and then from there I combine those values with the cell designation to get the overall EDTF style date. Now, if you're unfamiliar with EDTF, there are a couple weird things that you need to be aware of. First off, ranges can get very ugly very quickly. I'm not talking about the ranges from 2009 to 2010. I'm talking like 2009, 2010, 2011 to 2014, 2015 to January of 2017, and so on and so forth. That statement can be expressed. It does take a while. I have to be very cautious in doing those because one error can really mess things up. So take your time if you're going to do those type of things. Another option you need to be aware of is that the unknown date does not exist in EDTF. Everything must have a date. Now, if you were to look online, there are a couple solutions out there. Most popular one is to have 4 X's denote a unknown value for that. However, for searching purposes, it does not bode well in my initial testing. So we're currently experimenting with a couple options. The popular one at the moment is to have the unknown date to be the date range of the entire collection, and we specify it as one date within that set. So, because ideally it's going to be in part of that group anyway, we just include all the information there so that when you go and search, it will then appear as that result. I don't have a conclusive yet, but that's what we're currently working on. Another thing we wanted to include would be the digital extent and format. While a lot of the items that we have here are going to be associated with the physical side of things, so we do have things like page count, but the digital side was not incorporated very well. So I've used Droid here. For those that aren't familiar, it's from the National Archives in the UK. Is a great tool that allows you to export file formats and sizes. So in this example here, I'm showing you an extent example for both the physical manifest as well as digital manifest. By default, it comes out in bytes. So I have equations here that you run in Excel where you can convert the regular value into, in this case, megabytes. And you would, and the mid-bit is from a shortcode list that Microsoft published. I included the link here on the slide for those that are interested. And then from there, I append a label value, and then I combine the values together so that our extent is just one statement that includes both values. Now, in this particular scenario, I know the physical extent of the object. However, when we're converting digital files from the single page to multi-page, I do not want to have to open up every single PDF file to grab that page count. So I did what many people do and wrote a code for it. So this is a PowerShell script that I went ahead and created. I'm using a external program called PDF Info. It's a PDF reader that does have some capability in running in the command line, which it's perfect for this. And what this script will do is, if you run it on the root folder of whatever your PDF files are located, it will scan for every object that's in there, display the name and the page count onto a CSV file, and we'll export it to the root folder there. So there, you just open it up, you see the values, and then you use the equations from the previous slide and go forth with that. So that is the page count. So here's a little bit before and after of the end result. So this is the MFCS portion of the options. So as you can see here, this one document is across two items. And if you look at the metadata associated with the object, it's very sparse because it just didn't exist at the time. So after a lot of elbow grease and a lot of work, we were able to correct it. So if you go to the next slide, this is what this same object looks like within Haiku. As you can see, both pages are now in one object itself, and the metadata has now been fleshed out, and we have more robust information associated with the subjects, locations, as well as anyone that was associated with the object itself. And with that, I will take it off to Jessica. We'll give you a little tour.
Okay, so this is our repository. It's only available on campus and via VPN at the moment, but hopefully before too long it will be available for anybody to visit. Also, a lot of the final decisions on these images and some of this text is going to change. But you can see here that we took a lot of inspiration from University of Louisville and Digital Georgetown Haiku repositories in terms of kind of the way the Notch8 was able to redesign the featured collections and featured works options so that they are a little bit more polished and kind of squared off. We also still need to finalize some of our facets and that sort of thing. But if you click into a collection, it's pretty straightforward. We have, if you click into one of the items, another thing that we worked with Notch8 on was to create this 2-column layout, which I believe was similar to Georgetown, and also to incorporate the citation, which I think there are some other repositories that have this sort of thing as well. So that's our folks are pretty excited that that functionality is built in. I was able to add I'm going to close this and go to one where I'm logged in. And so another thing that Notch8 was able to do was create a custom theme for us. And so I mean, you saw it with the homepage and the show page. So those are there. Patrick was able to add some custom CSS to create a fade on the headers or the let me go back and so on some of the collections you can see that there's a fade up to the top so that this title will show up. That CSS does that when we upload images, which makes it really easy for people who are picking out pictures to find things that will fit. And thanks to the very good documentation by a few folks at Notch8 and I believe Christine Peterson, we were able to get Google Analytics incorporated and up and working. And Patrick, I don't know if there's anything else that you think I should show off. I think those were kind of some of the big things that were priorities at WVU.
Yep, I know we're using some questioning authority options right now in regards to some of the fields, as well as custom work types. So I don't know if you want to highlight those to those that may be interested.
Yeah, so we have work types for various collections. So things like our medicine. So we have a Civil War hospital collection. It has like the bed cards for the patients, and so we wanted to be able to use like the MASH subject headings for those, and so that's incorporated into the medicine work type. We don't have the questioning authority gem turned on for very many things because we need to have like local names. I think do you remember which one that still is the location still using it?
So I believe language is the big one that we're using it for. Ideally, we could use it for location with geo names because that's what we're using to kind of set ourselves up to using the gem for map searching. With that, I believe that's part of ArcLayer, Blacklight. I forget the two. It's one of them. They are two. They're named too similarly for me to remember off the top of my head, unfortunately. But like Jessica mentioned, our big one is not only do we have a local vocabulary, but we also have a little bit of a blend of other vocabularies. And at this current point of time, questioning authority can only do one type of vocabulary per field. It does not allow the multi-field support. Hopefully, at a later date, that's going to be added in, and so we can incorporate this into more values.
Yeah, so we do, so kind of as a proof of concept, the language one is working. And we did have it, Notch8 was able to configure it for a number of other like subjects and that sort of thing. It's just not quite, I know that there's been talk about like the next steps to get it up and running with either multiple vocabularies or local vocabularies. And some of that I think is in the Confluence page for Samvera, the wiki, about some thoughts about that initial kind of planning for that. But we are able to use the one of the ISO standards for the language. It's pulling from there, I believe. Other than that, I think that's all I had, unless, Patrick, is there anything else?
I don't think so. Like we said, we are very eagerly anticipating the soft launch for this. So I know a lot of our internal staff are eagerly excited to see it fully launch, and there's a lot of new collections that are currently not in MFCS that's going to be featured on that launch itself. So there's going to be a whole bunch of exciting things. So once we go public, stay tuned because I know we're going to make many and many announcements, and be happy to discuss what we learned along the way.
And if there are any questions that anyone has, in the meantime, feel free to reach out either on the Samvera Slack or by email, and Patrick and I will be happy to answer what we can. Thanks, everyone.